Our planet is split up into imaginary lines, both vertically and horizontally. These are known as longitude and latitude, respectively. A region with a similar longitude to another will likely share the same time zone, like say London and Lisbon. Regions with similar latitudes tend to have similar climates, as they share a similar distance from the equator, like say Sydney and Buenos Aires. There are also a select few cities which are found further south or north than other cities, which you'd be very surprised at. Like for example our first example, Rome and Chicago. Now I don't know about you, but in my head, if I was to imagine a world map with both of these cities, I'd be almost certain that Chicago will be further north. However, I'd actually be wrong. Chicago is actually found ever so slightly more south than Rome, which is kind of crazy as I always associate Chicago with blistering cold weather and Rome with sweltering hot weather. Chicago is found 41.8 degrees north and Rome 41.9. The climates of these cities aren't too dissimilar. The main difference is that Chicago does sometimes see incredibly cold days, due to its location so close to Lake Michigan, meaning it gets that really nasty wind chill. So as mentioned earlier, Sydney and Buenos Aires share a similar latitude at 33 and 34 degrees south respectively, meaning their climates are quite similar, both seeing similar temperatures throughout the year and about the same amount of rainfall, about 46 inches. It's not just Sydney and Buenos Aires that are similar in terms of latitude. There's a whole clump of cities in this region, such as Australia's capital Canberra, Montevideo of Uruguay, and Auckland too. Okay, so here's a little challenge for you. Which latitude has the most countries with territory on it? I think I've found the answer, but please do correct me if I'm wrong. So I found that 20 countries have territory on the 15 degrees north latitude line. This line also runs through Taiwan and French Guiana. Perth and Shanghai both share the same latitude, well, kind of. They are both 31 degrees. Shanghai is 31 degrees north and Perth 31 degrees south, meaning they are both about the same distance from the equator, which is around 3,500 kilometers. Next is two cities that are very similar in some ways, but then the complete opposite in others, Dubai and Miami. Both are full of tall skyscrapers, glamour, sports cars and nightlife, yet are culturally nothing really alike. They are both 25 degrees north, with Miami sitting in the southwest of the US and Dubai sitting in the heart of the Middle East. Although they share a similar latitude, the climates are very different. Miami has a tropical monsoon climate with hot, humid summers and mild, dry winters, while Dubai has a desert climate with extremely hot summers and warm winters with very little rainfall. Now this next one seriously shocked me. I had to double check it on a latitude comparison map. Dublin of Ireland and Hamburg of Germany. Now in my head, Dublin is easily further north than Hamburg and, well, Germany itself. However, this isn't the case. Dublin is actually technically further south than Hamburg, at 53.3 and 55.5 degrees north respectively. They share similar climates, with Hamburg having warmer summers and colder winters. So this next one is quite similar to our first one, Chicago and Rome. This time it is New York City and Madrid. The former being a northern city of the US and the latter a European capital. Now in my mental image of a world map, I'd almost certainly placed New York City further north than Madrid. However, this isn't the case. They are both 40 degrees north, with New York City being ever so slightly more northern. Next up is two very different looking cities, San Francisco and Athens. One is the epitome of modern day humans and the other a historical wonder. However, they both share the same latitude, with Athens in fact being located ever so slightly more north. They have very different climates however, with Athens seeing significantly hotter summers and a lot less rain throughout the year. Paris, Vienna and Bratislava are three capital cities that share the same latitude, 48 degrees north. They are the capitals of France, Austria and Slovakia respectively. Apart from sharing a similar latitude, Singapore and Nairobi don't really have a lot in common, even though they both sit just 1 degree north, just slightly above the equator. Their weather throughout the year is very different. Singapore has a tropical rainforest climate with constant high temperatures and abundant rainfall throughout the year, whereas Nairobi has a subtropical highland climate with milder temperatures and distinct wet and dry seasons. Okay, this next one is truly insane. Pyongyang of North Korea shares the same latitude as Ibiza of Spain. In case you're not familiar with Ibiza, it's a Spanish island in the Mediterranean which is world famous for its clubs and parties. It's a stunning island with gorgeous beaches. Yet, quite bizarrely, it shares the same distance away from the equator as Pyongyang, North Korea, at about 4,300 kilometers. Now, when I think of Pyongyang, I think of freezing cold conditions with everyone wearing those Soviet-style hats. However, Pyongyang does actually see sweltering hot summers, but its winters are also extremely cold. Temperatures in January can hover around -12 degrees Celsius. Las Vegas and Auckland both share the same latitude, but again, like Perth and Shanghai, the former is north of the equator and the latter south. Las Vegas is found 36.1 degrees north and Auckland 36.8 degrees south. Their climates and terrain are very different, however. Las Vegas has a desert climate with scorching hot summers and mild winters. Its terrain is made up of arid landscapes and desert. On the other hand, Auckland experiences a very temperate maritime climate with relatively mild temperatures year-round. Its terrain is made up of a mix of rolling hills, greenery and coastal areas. Another crazy one that's hard to believe is that Tokyo sits on a similar latitude to that of the most northern point of the Sahara Desert. The Sahara Desert extends up to just below the most northern point of Algeria. Some might say around the city of Biskra, which is 34.8 degrees north. Tokyo is 35.6 degrees north, so ever so slightly more northern. This means if you were to pick up Tokyo and somehow transport it nearly 11,000 kilometers west, it would arrive in the very northern part of the Sahara. On a side note, Tokyo is also found further south than Las Vegas, another one which doesn't really sound right. Next up is Venice and Montreal, who both sit on the exact same latitude, which is another one that really shocked me. Both cities sit 45.4 degrees north. When I think of Montreal, I think of huge snowstorms and people dressed up in their thickest winter gear. I know it does get hot in the summer, but it certainly gets very cold in the winter, whereas Venice doesn't really. 60 degrees south is an interesting latitude, as it consists of entirely ocean. The closest land to interrupt this perfect slice of ocean is a group of rocks just off Coronation Island of the South Orkney Islands. 0 degrees latitude is of course the equator. There are 13 countries in total who have territory across this imaginary line. And finally, both the North and South Pole share the same latitude. Of course, the North Pole is 90 degrees north and the South Pole 90 degrees south. So there we have it, some interesting latitudes of cities, regions and countries from around the world. If you can think of any others, feel free to drop them in the comments below. And drop a like if you'd like to see part 2. And as always, thank you so much for watching.